Okay, hi everybody. This is SIG Architecture Production Readiness meeting for whatever day it is today, June 10th. Yesterday was the freeze, the PRR freeze, so everything should be ready to review now. Um, I have, I think, 15 of them right now, but I'm giving my shadows a chance to review them. A couple of them they've already reviewed. But my plan will be, I don't see either of my shadows here today. My plan will be to make a full sweep tomorrow. I think a lot of them are probably pretty close already. Um, so I'm hoping by, certainly by the end of the week, maybe we'll have most of them all approved ahead of time. So that's it for me. Anybody else have comments or questions?
I have some comments this time. I've got some shadows as well. I do have a couple challenging keps this time, where being able to look and say things like, yes, you filled in the version skew section, but you're mistaken about what is acceptable to do via the version skew, like between a kubelet and a kube API server is a really critical skill. Um, and I'm highlighting it to my shadows where I've found it. But some things like that are difficult to sort of just know, right? Um, and I don't know how we want to address it overall, but it is a gap I think we need to figure out how to do, right? It's one of
Do
those
we,
where like, yeah, 90% of the time it's gonna be fine, but that 10% of the
right?
time it matters.
And it can make a big difference. Do we have it's there's some pretty clear documentation on version skew, right? In the have you reviewed that to make sure that it's sufficient?
I obviously I thought that it was, and and it is obviously I was mistaken. Or you could also look and say like the documentation gets you 90% of the way there, and the vast majority of caps it's good and it's thought out.
Well, I mean, there's also a lot of people writing KEPs who may not be familiar with all the documentation. There's a lot of documentation.
Um, so I just want to highlight it as something that I've paid particular attention to,
Okay,
going back behind my shadows.
thank you.
Yeah, I actually think this is something, well, I see a lot also in Signode where like I'm not, I think we even made some changes where there's, even forget what the feature is. I should follow up with Peter on that one. But yeah, I think like the kubelet, I mean the API server and kubelet runtimes, I was also reviewing a lot of keps around like the container runtime skew and like what is our behavior, like how does kubelet know what features are available in the container runtime or not. I don't think that's documented anywhere. And
We don't. So we did. David just come to the node feature discovery, but that's really on the kubelet features. We talked, I don't know, a year ago, maybe more, about the idea of some sort of discovery protocol between the container runtime and the kubelet, but I don't think we ever did anything with it in Signode.
we have, it's no declared features, which I know I've seen at least a Signode has been calling out as something we could add. I'm not
That's about telling this the scheduler what features
okay.
are enabled on a node so that it doesn't schedule things. So there's two parts of that. One is the node advertises, hey, these are the features. And then the other part is um, basically some little functions defined that let the scheduler evaluate a pod spec and determine if it requires any of those declared features and then avoid nodes that don't have them. But that's not between kubelet and container runtime, at least not that I recall. That's between scheduler and kubelet.
Yes. It's also important to remember that that feature is not a security boundary, right? So it's very
Oh,
useful, but it is not a security boundary. So when people assert something like, well, I thought it was NFD, but I guess it's NDF. NDF will make sure this doesn't happen. Well, it will make sure that it doesn't happen accidentally, but that doesn't mean someone can't just place their pod on your node. And when that happens, you're going to be in big trouble if you tried to use it as a security boundary.
Oh, it's definitely not a security boundary. It's just intended to prevent pods from failing when they land on a node.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, and you know that, right? But
Right,
so
you can just set the node name on the pod and you bypassed it completely,
yeah.
right?
So, but I know that, and you know that.
Yeah,
It's an
okay.
example where, like, is everything we need in the docs? Yes, technically, yes. Will people be able to read those docs and come to that conclusion? Not always.
Okay. Kevin, your hand's up. Did you have another comment?
No, I'm sorry, I just forgot. Put it down.
Uh, okay. Anything else? So I think your comment, David, is please pay special attention to the version skew. Uh, how does that relate to node feature discovery other
Oh,
than you're saying people?
other than like in one of the particular cases that I looked at, it was something. Well, the response from the author was, well, this will solve it. And the shadow didn't know enough to know, like, oh, well, not really.
I
Uh,
see. It will resolve like operational. Yeah, like if it's. I mean, I don't know. I think that's a sufficient answer if it's not a security issue. If it's like
right.
I don't know. Yeah.
I can probably get that far, but in this case, we're looking at a security feature, which,
Okay.
your pod runs on safely. Well, that's going to be a
That's
problem.
bad. Yeah.
I guess one thing that I'm also been struggling with is like even when I'm reviewing these, like what's the guidelines of when like a metric should be required for some of these features versus like what is fine from like the pod spec level? Because I know sometimes, or and because like there are some cases where I don't want people to say, oh, you can just check the kubelet logs and that's fine. But other times it's like, well, I don't know if the overhead of adding a metric for this is really worth it for this feature.
So there's already always a metric on feature gate enablement. That's not necessarily sufficient to say a feature is in use, but like it tells you if it's enabled. But the to my mind, yeah, if it's like super expensive to add the metric for some reason, then you may not need to do it, or you may be able to rely on like um, what is it, cube state metrics to just see that these resources exist, right, or something like that. But looking at a log or looking at or running a cube control command against 10,000 clusters is not an ideal way to determine if features are enabled. So if you're talking about the question of like from a cluster administrator point of view, a metric seems pretty important to me in almost all cases. If you're talking about from can the user tell if it's working for them? I don't think metrics are the path there. That's like a user looking at their individual instance and like what commands do I run kind of thing. So that there it's more like kube control. So that's how I tend to think about it is like unless there's a good reason like cost wise, either development or more importantly, you know, um, cost of the computational cost, I would generally say we need a metric.
Yeah, I
I
guess
mean,
the one, sorry, go on. I'll check.
in a lot of cases, because we already have so many metrics covering various objects, it's good to ask for maybe one of the existing metrics that is covering a
Sure.
particular area is sufficient signal for you to be able to say, yes, this is working, or no, we broke something. In those cases, I'm not even expecting anyone to add a new metric, but I'm always asking, I'm not asking for a new metric, but try to identify the existing metrics. It can be a set of metrics. It doesn't have to be one particular metric. It can be a set of pre-existing metrics that you can, with a pretty high confidence, say that yes, it's working or no, it's not working. And the goal is always, and that's how I always view the metric, the questions around metric, it's or discoverability if it's working correctly is from a cluster admin perspective. I don't care about a single user because a single user can do any kubectl command to figure out, or they will know whether they used it or not. It's more from a cluster admin perspective, because they turn a particular feature on and they would like to monitor and ensure that the functionality is working. Or when it's not working, what will be the signal for them to figure out that something is not correct? And well, we should probably think about a rollback and see if the situation stabilizes. If it cool, we have a winner of the problem. If not, then a further investigation. Logs, I would probably say kube controller, kubelet, or API server logs would be like a last resort. The metrics is like the first high level overview into your cluster. So that's how I'm always treating the metrics question.
Yeah, no, I agree. The one that I guess for John and I was looking at was the standardized attribute for like the NUMA node. And then I was one like because
I
like
don't think we need a metric for that.
okay. Yeah, because like that was one where yeah, it was like I'm like I feel like this it's probably overkill. I mean, I guess it is not a bad idea if device drivers are public have standardized attributes. I think more like a centralized information on that one, but I don't know if that's there's
I don't think we need a metric. That's not like a like that's each individual driver publishes this information or doesn't, and I don't think we need a
okay.
key metric for that.
All right, no, yeah, because yeah, that was the one that I was thinking of, and I know
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, there are some that are kept that are just like they're not. I mean, the questions are generic, right? And sometimes they're just not that applicable to some particular kept.
yeah, that makes sense. All right, thanks.
Priyanka.
I have a quick one. So I reviewed a bunch this cycle, and we were discussing early on in the call about version skew strategy. So I when I reviewed the keps that I assigned myself, I went through the whole kep, but then I tried to keep my review comment within the PRR section or everything below it. Version skew falls above. So is that something we, from PRR perspective, should comment and like stress
You
to
should
fill it?
comment on everything everywhere in the cap that you see, right? Like the
Okay.
focus from the approval point of view is on that, but there are several things that aren't in the production readiness section but are pretty relevant, like all the test
Mm-hmm.
plans and graduation criteria and the versions queue and the I mean, but feel free to comment anywhere and everywhere.
Okay. And
Version
one more
skew in
thing.
particular is one that I often look at because it tends to have a heavily impacted by the can my feature go from enabled to disabled to enabled, and what does that flow
Mm-hmm.
look like? Because during that time period, you're guaranteed to skew, and so that's why that section stands out.
Yeah, yeah. I tried to use the rollout section to call that out, like call out how you are, like how you are handling the downgrade or upgrade, or like how you're handling the versions queue basically. I did not stress to fill that section, and I now am saying maybe I can go back to one of the kept PRR reviews where I just let the versions queue strategy like empty. Another one is, I remember on the last call, John, you mentioning that from when we are doing PRR reviews, we don't really look at code. But there were a bunch that I was reviewing, and there were um, PRs, code PRs already there. So I did went, like I went and looked at them to understand what exactly, like how it is proposed. I think two which I reviewed are in alpha, so it helped me to understand the
Yeah,
feature also better. um, I'll just finish. Like I commented, referencing the code PR and asked them for clarification. Is that something we do
that's
usually?
great. My point was really that where we are in the process is we gate on the cap, right? We don't there are not enough of us to review every code PR, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
so we rely on the SIGs to ensure that the code that gets implemented follows the cap. Like that was my point. Like feel free to go anywhere, regardless of this group or any group, the whole project, you are welcome to go in and review any code anywhere, anytime. And in fact, not only are you welcome, you're encouraged, and it's wonderful to do so because more eyes is better. So please don't ever feel shy about that. Um, the if it's useful to you to review, if there already are code PRs and it's useful for you to review it when you go into the KEP to understand what they're saying, no issues at all. Don't constrain yourself. We don't have any rules. Like what in that sense, right? Like do whatever you need to do. Like the whole point is just to be useful and make sure that what gets released is meets our quality bar.
Yep, makes sense. And maybe last one, Maciej, can I just go? It's one line.
Yeah, go ahead.
We discussed about some, like, I think we are referencing some documentation. Um, I know about the PRR, the whole, like, the production readiness review documentation. Is there any other documentation also we have?
I mean, there's the entire contributors, like in KEP review in general. There's the entire contributors like handbook or whatever we call it. Like so, but I mean, the whole when I say there's like you're free to do anything. The point though is that you can't do everything, right? So that's why there's a PRR review that's constrained to this section because otherwise, it can quickly be overwhelming, right? So we were wanting to make sure we get the signal on this narrow set of things, and that's the focus. But things like API review, right? There's an enormous document on API
Yeah.
conventions, and you know anybody reviewing a KEP is free to point out things that don't meet the API conventions, but we have a separate API reviewer group that is intimately familiar with those rules and has thought through like API evolution and all of these things so that they can catch things that just generally not everybody would catch. So there's in the contributors section of the community website, I think it is. I don't know, we've moved it around over the years, but I think that's where it is right now. There's a ton of documentation, and any and all of that's relevant, but in order to prevent overwhelm on the reviewers, like that's the production readiness section is kind of the role of this group. And other
Okay.
groups have the mandate to make sure. So the SIG makes sure that like the functionality and all of that's right. The API reviewers make sure the API review is right. We make sure that the enablement, disablement, and metrics and supportability type of things are there. So
Okay. Thank you. That's
yeah.
helpful. Thank you.
To add some color, if you look through the template itself, there's a bunch of link inside of the template which are covering stuff like the version SKU, the deprecation policies, or testing guidelines and so forth. The ones that I very frequently pull up whenever talking about deprecations or the version SKUs are those two particular documents. There's also a part of our official docs, there's an upgrade strategy, how you should be rolling. And if I'm seeing someone, and that was something that I saw earlier, claiming that the order of upgrading is not what we document, is something that I'll be pointing like, what you're trying to write is different from our official supported that you always have to first roll the API, then control it and kubelet as the last. Going back is the other direction. So those will be the docs that I will be frequently linking, even in the PRR review, and also to give a little bit more details around the other parts of the document, I'm going to be reading, especially in the early stages, the entire document. And if I find something that is not clear or I don't understand, I'm going to ask questions, whether that's part of the PRR or not part of the PRR, part of the document. I am actually responsible for making sure that the document is understandable. And it can be as simple as please don't use abbreviation and introduce what the concept is, and only then start using abbreviations. To bigger stuff like sometimes, especially in the area that you're not familiar with, um, some people might have tendency to skip certain things that they feel are obvious. And you, as someone who's not familiar, you're a good reviewer and be able to show them. Maybe we need to explain a little bit and provide some additional details so that it's easier to understand for other readers, but also for you, because you have to put the stamp eventually and say, yes, I feel like whatever is written down makes sense and it is reasonable. So I'll probably say those things. Um,
Thank you. Yeah, super helpful.
Okay. Others? Okay, then. Well, no more questions. Then let's get some reviews in, and deadline is less than 1 week away. So for Cap Freeze, so please do your reviews as quickly as possible, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
See
Thanks,
y'all.
folks. Bye.